Some of Mom's favorite books and movies. Please comment.
In early 1974, my mother was in a TV series called Nakia, starring Robert Forster. Nakia Parker was a Native American serving as a deputy in San Jericho, New Mexico. Preferring a horse or an old truck over his police car, he combined tribal tradition with modern crime techniques. When I was lucky, I got to go with her onto the set and skip school. The production company had rented an old house in Albuquerque, and I was watching the shoot from outside with the owner of the house, a wonderful older woman. We were talking and I mentioned that I wish I had brought a book. She asked what I liked to read, and I told her science fiction. She had a broad smile as she said she had a book for me. She went into her house and gave me my first copy of Earth Abides. Earth Abides is a 1949 American post-apocalyptic science fiction novel by George R. Stewart. The novel tells the story of the fall of civilization from deadly disease and the emergence of a new culture with simpler tools. Set in the 1940s in Berkeley, California, the story is told by Isherwood Williams, who emerges from isolation in the mountains to find almost everyone dead. This is the copy of Earth Abides that I was given. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 4, men go and come, but earth abides. The story's messages of humanity, hope, and compassion are as relevant today as they were nearly a century ago. Michael Wright, head of MGM+. Earth Abides was adapted into a two-part radio drama in November of 1950 for the CBS program Escape. Produced and directed by Norman Macdonald and starring John Denner as Isherwood Williams. Originally broadcast November 5 and November 12, 1950. The radio adaptation significantly reduced the novel, omitting characters, plotlines, and themes to focus on the story of Isherwood's journey. Jimi Hendrix claimed that Earth Abides was his favorite book and his song Third Stone from the Sun is inspired by the novel. Stephen King has stated that Earth Abides was an inspiration for his post-apocalyptic novel, The Stand. Earth Abides officially began filming in Vancouver, BC, Canada. The 6-episode limited series is a wildly imaginative new take on George R. Stewart's classic sci-fi novel of the same name. MGM Plus has already confirmed that Earth Abides will premiere sometime in late 2024. Created by showrunner Todd Komarnicki, the series comes from MGM Plus Studios and executive producers Kiri Peak and Lighthouse Productions Michael Phillips and Juliana Mayo. The series stars Alexander Ludwig as Ish, Leah Gibson as Anne, and Jessica Francis Dukes as Emma. Which brings me to Fahrenheit 451, a 1953 dystopian novel by American writer Ray Bradbury. It presents a future American society where books have been outlawed and firemen burn any that are found. The novel follows in the viewpoint of Guy Montag, a fireman who soon becomes disillusioned with his role of censoring literature and destroying knowledge, eventually quitting his job and committing himself to the preservation of literary and cultural writings.
Remember, the sacred book that holds the secrets to humanity's salvation has been memorized.
You know, you say you've been walking for 30 years, right?
Right.
Have you ever thought that maybe you were lost?
Nope.
Well, how do you know that you're walking in the right direction?
I walk by faith, not by sight.
What does that mean?
It means that you know something even if you don't know something.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't have to make sense. It's faith. It's faith. It's the flower of light in the field of darkness that's giving me the strength to carry on, you understand.
Is that from your book?
No, it's Johnny Cash, Live at Folsom Prison.
The Man from Earth. Professor John Oldman is packing his belongings onto his truck, preparing to move to a new home. His colleagues show up to give him an impromptu farewell party: Harry, a biologist; Edith, an art history professor and devout Christian; Dan, an anthropologist; Sandy, a historian who is in unrequited love with John; Art, an archaeologist; and his younger student Linda. As John's colleagues press him to explain the reason for his departure, he begins his tale under the guise of a possible science fiction story, but eventually stops speaking in hypotheticals and begins answering questions from a first-person perspective. In the course of the conversation, each guest questions John's story based on knowledge from their own academic specialty. Dr. Will Gruber, a psychiatry professor who arrives at Art's request later that afternoon, questions if John feels guilt for outliving everyone he has ever known and loved.
And now try again.
After the Dark. Mr. Zimmett, the good news is, although we're about to part ways, not one of you leaves here lacking the credentials to thrive in the world. You're all well equipped to push on to university and become happy, energetic members of a post-industrial 21st century society. On the other hand, what if that society ceases to exist? What if your credentials don't mean what you expected, and your expectations mean nothing at all? I know it's hard to conceive of everything you've based your plans on being wiped away at a single stroke, but it's happened before and it can happen again. So let's say things do change. I propose one last Gedanken experiment, a final thought experiment, for our final session together. Something on a grand scale, something juicy. Let's envision a global cataclysm. In the event of which, how do you survive? Mr. Zimmett just announced to the class that they'll conduct a final big thought experiment about survival during a global cataclysm.
But is it biological? Geological? Thermonuclear? Meteorological?
Hang on, Chips, we'll get there. Let's go old school. Say. Atomic.
And last, but not least, she sings to the stars. No water, a river of stars, everything changes, anything is possible. Mabel is a Native American grandmother who lives alone, tending her drought-ravaged corn in the desert Southwest. Her half-Mexican grandson, Third, dreams of making it big in LA, but his plans change dramatically when he comes to his grandmother's house to collect traditional dolls he hopes to sell for a high price. Lyle is a fated magician from LA traveling with a white rabbit, the promise of a gig and a lifelong dream to be able to magically disappear. When his radiator boils over, he is stranded outside Mabel's house. Both men must yield to a timeless rhythm to discover a capacity greater than imagined. And last, a book for only those who have a weird sense of humor. Venus on a Half Shell, by Kilgore Trout. Venus on the Half Shell is a science fiction novel by American writer Philip Jose Farmer, writing pseudonymously as Kilgore Trout, a fictional recurring character in many of the novels of Kurt Vonnegut. This book first appeared as a fictitious excerpt, attributed to Trout, though written by Vonnegut, in the 9th chapter of Vonnegut's God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, 1965. With Vonnegut's permission, Farmer expanded the fragment into an entire standalone novel, including, as an in-joke, a scene that incorporates all of Vonnegut's original text. The plot, in which Earth is destroyed by cosmic bureaucrats doing routine maintenance and the sole human survivor, Simon, goes on a quest to find the definitive answer to the ultimate question. Simon wanted to know why it, the supreme being, would create sextillions upon sextillions of living beings to suffer for no reason. Venus on the Half Shell was an inspiration for the plot of the later Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series.
Each of these stories will make you think. What would you do in Isherwood's place? What one book would you save? Would you have the faith to carry through? Would you believe John's story? What would you do in this situation? What are your thoughts on where Mabel went? What is God, if there is one? So, for a thought-provoking movie or book, check these out and let me know what you think. Comments are welcome and don't forget to like.